We should learn more about what it's like end of life. One of the best programs we could do is have every high school kid in the country or college kid in the country go spend time with older people who are dying and tell them, hey, I lived on this planet for a while, but I know a few things. Here's my regrets. Here's what worked. And mostly what you learn, you're going to worry about a lot, but most things are okay. Sometimes we can just become too self-important. What are we really freaking out about? Sometimes as humans, we're so obsessed with what's happening. We are spinning around a giant ball of fire, thousands of miles an hour. It's a miracle we're even here. Just rest in that.
This is the Human Future Podcast, where we explore the intersection of technology and spirituality with some of the world's brightest minds. Together, we paint a vision of the desirable future and discuss the actionable steps to make that vision a reality. And now, without further ado, let's begin. Today, I had a pleasure talking to Kaben Clauson, who is an entrepreneur and the co-founder of B.A.S.E, which is a modern social club aimed at bringing great minds together for curated social experiences. During our conversation, we explored the convergence of technology, humanity, and community, discussing how these dimensions shape our future. We took a deep dive into the potential applications of artificial intelligence, human cognitive function, the future of virtual reality, and evolving communication. The talk also explores themes like human nature, mortality, digital avatars, and simulated realities. And lastly, we talked about the essence of human connection and the growing role of AI in mediating it. And now let's dive in. Welcome. And this is where my editor also knows where the official start of the conversation is, man.
Cool.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for agreeing to participate in this experiment. It's cool that you actually haven't seen this, like most people. In fact, everyone that I've so far interviewed, they were all my friends who've seen the setup before. So you're the first person who's
awesome.
like, oh, what is this? Like, this is cool.
This is great. I love this.
So I'd like to set an intention for this conversation. So the theme for the podcast is a human future podcast, talking about desirable visions of the future that we all want to live in, and talking about some actionable steps that we can take, regular people can take to bring that type of future into reality, or at least to increase the chances of us manifesting that type of future. And I'd like to, every person have their own unique perspective and unique set of experiences that they have, and I think it's best for them to focus on their segment of that future and not really jump around too much. Let's say a person from wellness space might have more insights around that topic and not really touch topic of AI, for example. Somebody like you who is tapped into things like community, technology, somewhere in that space, I think would be the intersection where we can find the most usefulness of your perspective on what we can do with the future. And I think a good place for us to start is for you maybe to give me an introduction of your journey up to now that makes sense, like the most instrumental milestones that brought you here, working on projects. Because basically, this is a culmination of your life. Every moment is a culmination of our life. And so what are those like milestones?
Well, life flows in a very strange way at times, because when I think of myself being involved in community, I don't necessarily have a natural inclination for it from a young age. That wasn't something I was pursuing. I think what I was able to witness, though, in kind of a strange way, I had the experience of being around religion at an early age. And one of the things that's happening in our society today is religion is increasingly becoming less popular, at least in attendance and things like that. And struck by two thoughts, right? I mean, there's something about these religions are not reaching out to these younger generations and winning their minds and hearts. But more importantly, outside of the religion itself, though, what I noticed there was the incredible power of having a tribe or community where a few necessary things happen, I think, for human happiness. And one is to just be recognized, for someone to simply know your name and your face and know a few things about you. And when I think of relationship, through my life, I've had these close relationships and deep friendships with people from very different backgrounds. And something I've always loved is my first best friend, I would say, was when I was just 3 or 4 years old, was a young boy by the name of Skimboos. We were living in South Africa at the time in a Zulu township called Kwadangezi. It's about 20 miles out of Johannesburg. Mm-hmm. It's a very impoverished place. Mm. And what was so interesting about that is I was a white kid living in South Africa in an Indian village that was very poor. Many of the children didn't even have shoes. And although I was so young, 7 years younger than this kid, and we were from such different worlds and barely could even speak the same language with one another, we formed a bond together. And I think about that, that kind of, that bonds can be found, and I think sometimes actually the best bonds are found where we least expect them. I think that the other seminal moment of my life was living in a place like Alaska, which has a very unique type of cultural DNA of people feeling, Alaska, like Australia, is a place where criminals used to go. Australia used to be where the English would send all their criminals. Wild place to start a country. And Alaska was a place where a lot of criminals would flee because as you're a lawman, you probably don't want to chase somebody all the way up to Alaska. Sure. 1912. Right. So being in Alaska taught me there's this concept of community is multi-layered. There's the idea of the community you feel with your closest friends, who know you so intimately. Mm-hmm. Then there's that tribal community, I'd call it, that you feel at a church, or you might feel at your local chess night or some music meetup that's continual and regular. Mm-hmm. And then there's the community of like the larger, there's almost like a spirit that permeates a group of people. Here in Miami, you feel it, probably without seeing a landmark or being told you were here, you might be able to recognize it. So through my life, I've kind of seen these aspects of these three different areas of community. And what led me to starting B.A.S.E, I think, was this middle part, which is this idea of, you have close friendships. Most of us do, or at least we would hope you would, at least a few. And I think that it's great to have trusted people that you can go all the way with, where there's not one thing held back. But that's only going to be a few people, It's this second group that I think so many of us are lacking in, especially in this post-COVID world where maybe many of our friends are in other places. I've got best friends of mine, spread out now all over the world. Mm-hmm. But to have people locally that can see you and say, hey, it's Kaben, and I can see them, and have that feeling of continual interaction with new faces and old faces is so key to human happiness. And I guess my final thought on this is why. And we all kind of know, okay, human connection is important for happiness in a very vague way, and even I would say it but not really think it through. And the reason it happened is quite simply it's an evolutionary instinct as human beings. We were in small tribes before. Sure. And in order to survive in a dangerous world, we needed allies. Maybe I couldn't find any fruit that day. You had some fruit you could give me. Right. So I think we feel a safety. I think it lowers our anxiety, lowers our depression. Yep. It increases our chance of success in every aspect of life, romantically, financially, I would argue even spiritually, when you're interacting with people in that tribal way.
That makes sense. Yeah. Now it kind of solidifies my idea that in rougher climates where you do, especially in back in the day, you definitely do rely on your peers to be able to survive. Like when you're like wolves, right? Like when they're hunting, they're doing it together. They're really relying on themselves. And so when there's no like abundance of food, especially during colder seasons, you really have to come together to figure out the plan. How you're going to survive. By yourself, you probably won't survive. Did you notice in Alaska that people had stronger bonds than, let's say, I don't know, like in other places that you've been?
Well, I think the smaller towns I've spent time in, people do have stronger bonds. I think in general, I think that's just the nature of the limiting factor of less people, you're more likely to run into people. That's just the math equation there. In a way, though, what was unique about Alaska is I think Alaska is maybe the other way. It has a lot of independently minded people. It has a lot of people that find peace, I think, in the solitude. Alaska's a place you can really get away. You can get a cabin where you're not going to see anybody if you don't want to.
Yeah.
And there's an independence to people there, though. And that independence, I feel, is part of that community that like permeates you. I think every human being, it's like where you were in those formative years, whether you like it or not, and some of us love it, and some of us hate where we grew up. It is a part of you, and I think finding out taking the time to think through how did the place and the people I was surrounded by early on change me, how to make me better, and also maybe did it create any blind spots, being in that culture. Because inevitably, I think that's what a culture can do.
Have you noticed down the line later in life, you've noticed some blind spots that you weren't aware before? And
I think, I was lucky kind of by accident to get out of it because I went to school at American University in D.C., which has two distinctions. One is it's very international school. So as an American, I was the minority in almost every business class. Which that alone is kind of like shakes you out of this pro-Americana kind of we're the best, kind of thing. And in some areas we are.
Right.
And there was also Alaska is a traditionally conservative state, and American University is quite a liberal place. Many students, far left of Obama, on the spectrum there. So that collision was great in both ways because I think some experience in the real world around blue-collar people in Alaska allowed me to have a different lens on some of the more progressive things I was learning. And some of the progressive learnings helped me to kind of recalibrate how I thought about the overt independence of Alaskan, the libertarian mindset of Alaska. And I think that collision was, if nothing else, super interesting.
The one topic that I wanted to spend a good amount of time talking about is social clubs, private clubs. I was doing a little research and seeing that there's a pretty big trend in the recent years around social clubs. People are searching for ways to connect. COVID definitely accelerated that process. So how would you define what's a social club?
Well, a social club is it's essentially a vehicle to bring people together, and it's usually gated in some way around a payment or admission policy. I think what you can do with the social club that's unique versus, let's say, a classic social network is you can be a little more defined in what you're targeting. You can ask for more from the members too. And specifically when I think in the social clubs we're talking about here, these are in real life things. These could be country clubs, these could be physical location social clubs, and they could be ones like our business, which is a distributed social club that's just helping people meet in real life all over a city. But social clubs are probably, they're taking off, I think, because we've reached a point in our society of technological saturation that is obscenely high. And the results from many millions of people are not great. I think Andrew Putnam's book, Bowling Alone, he's a sociologist that wrote about the breakdown in community. He writes this book in 2001 about how communities, falling off a cliff in America. 2001, right? So this is before social media, before, the iPhone, becomes this like almost bionic device for most of us, before COVID, before remote work. And he talked about the breakdown in society. And there's a lot of causes. There's a lot of theories. I think the main one, at least with my bias, was as I analyzed it, was the television. The television starts to take off in the 1970s. And come on, talk about a great experience. What an invention. You're sitting in one place and you're transported to another. And the way the human brain works, you feel like you're there.
Sure.
And they just get better and better, and then more channels and more programming. But what happened was the television is a single player activity. So we used to socialize around a lot more multiplayer activities, right? Pre-World War II, there was a lot more card games with your neighbors. There was a lot more balls. There was debate night. There was singing competitions.
Yep.
And the television made it really easy to have a lot of fun all alone. So that, I think, was the seminal moment in my mind.
Interesting, yeah. And then the social media then extended that even further, would you say? Yeah.
Way worse, because TikTok, I think, we'll look back in history with a wider lens and go, wow, the TikTok phenomenon was kind of peak hacking our brains' attention, the way our brains work. Because I'll tell you, I go out of my way to use blocking apps to block Instagram and shut them down at certain times of the day. You can get onto YouTube Shorts, TikTok, Instagram Reels, and it's hacking your mind because that need for variable reward, and then it knows what you like, so it's tickling your mind again and again and again. So I think there's a backlash that's going to happen to that because people are going to realize, and I think they are more and more, although these are not inherently bad things, but like anything, like sugar or alcohol,
right.
If you're consuming them in mass quantities, they're probably going to kill you.
You can certainly argue that, let's say, social media or this attention-grabbing content that's not serving humanity, that it's a bad thing for us. I see it as a totally natural process of us evolving, and we're maybe in the stage of discovering vulnerabilities in the human mind or human cognition to come up with systems, potentially artificial systems that human create that will enhance our ability to get to the next challenge. It's all about just moving forward, like keep going, keep evolving, and going through challenges and iterating, making mistakes, and that's how life works. We're just like babies. In the relative terms, this is such a new phenomenon for humans, right?
Yep.
We haven't really figured out yet how to really navigate this whole digital thing that we've created, or it was created out of. I don't even know that we are. Sometimes I look at it as not like we are the agents who create technology. It almost like technology evolves through humans. It's like biology evolves through chemistry. It's kind of like that.
Yep. And TikTok has this weird phenomenon for the brain where imagine you're spending an hour on a Sunday, and you could spend an hour watching short form video content, and you'll learn a little bit about 100 things, let's say. And it's probably going to make you laugh sporadically and all these things. There's a lot of funny ones too, right? Which is great. Laughter is super important.
Yeah.
Or another person spends that hour reading or watching something about a single subject. And this is the part of me where I really do get concerned about the next generation, because what I know, and I think it's been proven just by any brain research, in order for a new memory thought to lock in, it has to be studied in a continual way. So in a sense, I feel like that hour of short form content is a bunch of sporadic learnings that my brain can't fully get its mind around, versus some longer form content. So the most hopeful thing is podcasting. Long form podcasting is taking off. I mean, the most popular podcast in the world is regularly 3.5 hours long. People listen to the whole thing. So I think that speaks to the fact that maybe this middle ground is where we're losing everything, where people are either going very deep into a topic or they're just getting this bite-sized kind of distraction. And I think it's a very interesting distinction on what it might be doing to our society.
Yeah, and the time will show. My intention is always to bring as much awareness into how we use the tools and use them consciously. There is this idea of the medium is the message. I forgot who said it, but basically the idea is that the medium through which we send messages, let's say the way we send internet packets is through fiber optics or something like that. So the medium is the fiber. In social settings, we're sending memes or some ideas through, let's say, social media platform. So social media becomes a medium through which we communicate or sending messages. And so this idea says the medium carries basically a message of its own as well. So it's not all neutral per se. Oftentimes we say, oh, it's just how, like, the intention or how we use it, it's all neutral. I think it's important to notice that the medium through which you communicate also steers the message, or it alters potentially the message into a certain direction. Let's say in social media, it's all centered around getting more attention and monetizing the attention, right? And so that results in a certain type of behavior out of that. And so even if you have all of the great intentions, the social medias that we're using are certainly altering our behavior or our ways of engaging or self-organizing, So we have to be very conscious of what the social media tools are doing and maybe proposing or choosing better ones if there are alternatives. For a while, we didn't really have alternatives, but I feel like now it's starting to emerge.
Well, and I hope things like what we're working on with B.A.S.E, where we're using technology to make it easier to meet people in real life. That's where, technology is not inherently good or evil. I think it's always something that can be used in both, different ways. It can be used for good. It can be used for evil. The next social media platform has to, I think, redefine what social even is, because I think you're right. The incentives of these platforms, they start at the company level, but I think your distinction is a great one, because you can't help, it's human nature to want to win the game that's placed in front of you, whether it's Monopoly or it's Instagram.
Yep. And
it's human nature to want to get likes and want to get that validation. The challenge is it creates a lot of mini celebrities. We live in a world where as human beings, we're naturally narcissistic. Most of us have it under enough control where it allows us to be loving and care for other people, but ultimately we do think about our own lives the most, right? Almost all the time. Now we've given people the ability to feel like a celebrity, potentially even at a young age. And I'm not talking someone with 50,000, 100,000, 300,000 followers. I'm talking even with 500 followers. That is an audience of people who are keeping track of you, following what you're up to, and engaging with your content.
Yeah. That was never possible before social media. 500 people, that's a room, like this whole office full of people.
That's a good point.
That's a lot of people.
We just count what that number is. Imagine if you got to stand in front of 500 people and give a message. And people have never been more scared to public speak. I briefly ran a public speaking club, as it were, here in Miami until I didn't have the time to continue with it, but we'll bring it back at some point because it was so profound, because we had people that had incredible success in so many areas of their life who still, the idea of public speaking terrified them.
Yeah.
Sweaty palms.
Yes.
Dry mouth, shaking, all these. And when you think about that, I've experienced all these things. In fact, to this day, and I've done a bit of speaking in my life, I still get them. But even think about what's happening there. It goes back to our earlier point about tribes. Why would I be nervous public speaking, or anybody? You're standing in front of a crowd, and they're giving you their attention, and you are worried, will I be judged great or bad? And it goes back to the evolutionary instinct. The instinct was, if I speak to this crowd and my message is not well received, they might tell me to leave the village.
Exactly.
In which case, I'm now sleeping out in the woods and a wolf will get me. Exactly. Right? So that the ultimate fear, so one of the things we tried to help people do was just become comfortable. Realize that your brain is kind of has a weird
misfiring.
bug.
Yeah,
It's a bug.
Yeah, totally.
Nothing bad's going to happen to you.
For
One
sure.
guy was really nervous, and he came up to me and says, Kaben, I don't know if I want to do it today. Like, I know I was scheduled, but I don't want to do it. Like, I can't do it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, what's the worst thing that can happen up there? Imagine you poop your pants.
Right. Divorce.
Diarrhea.
Yeah.
Everyone sees. Smells horrible all over the stage. It's clearly... Okay, that's bad. That is the worst thing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Everyone will laugh. Yeah. You and I might go home. You might tell, your girlfriend. You might tell, we might tell friends about this funny thing that happened. Even if it got posted on social media, a lot of people would find out. You're not in trouble. You're not going to jail. No one's going to hate you. In fact, it'd probably be the best thing for your public speaking career. You now have this incredible, like, self-deprecating story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I tried to frame it for him like that, and I don't think I was successful.
Yeah, he was probably even more terrified of that idea. He was like, no way.
Probably wasn't my best tactic.
When you were talking about humans and what humans do, and I see. So maybe it's important for us to define what's a human being. Like, what does it mean to be a human? Is it just the ego that we're talking about? Is it about like our essence? You can go different levels, and depending on what your belief system is, I think you can have other aspects of you that you can call, maybe, I don't know if it's innate to being a human, or is it just a being that has part of it as a human being, and then the other part is just eternal, ethereal type of being. How do you see it?
Well, it's a great question. I've been thinking about this as I've gotten into the practice of meditation, and the practice of meditation and some experimentation with psychedelics have given me some kind of a new theory on this. And the theory is kind of I know less now than before.
It's common the case. Yeah.
I'm kind of in awe of the mystery of it, because, for example, the subconscious mind. Throughout our days, my mind will randomly deliver me information. It'll deliver me information from the future. Oftentimes scary information. What if this bad thing happens to me? It'll pop up, or it'll deliver something from the past, a fun random memory, or a moment of embarrassment. And it's so random. And when you're meditating and you see those thoughts come, and you start to be that passive observer of the thoughts, that was like the first distinction. I realized, so this self monologue that I have, it's not actually me, but it is me in a way. It's something coming out of the subconscious mind. And as I've started to separate from my inner thought monologue, that has been an incredibly powerful thing to, if not understanding what it is to be human, at least understanding who I am. Because I learned so much of the monologue was ingested from things that I didn't even choose to bring into my life, right? It's culture, it's television, it's social media, it's what a teacher said to you when you were 10 years old. It's what a coach said to you when you were 21. These things are creating this whole subconscious machine, and that breakaway of those racing thoughts and me just observing them, I think I'm getting closer to figuring out it's just the observer. I think. So there's a long-winded way of saying I think what it is to be human is to observe, and I think that's when I look at I happen to have cats actually, and when I look at like what's different between me and them, they have one gift that humans don't have. They're always in the moment. They're not like, phew. What if, my taxes, you got to file. They're like, what about that other cat I used to know 5 years ago? No, they're just like, do I have food? Do I have water?
Yep.
Am I comfortable? Am I safe? Can I sleep? Should I play? And when we look at animals versus us, we also have this whole nother layer. And I think that's the biggest this distinction to observe our life from afar.
Yeah, I also think a lot about that, and especially relating to technological evolution and technology being able to replicate what we considered a human function that machines are not able to do, like creativity or I don't know, any other especially now with all this AI theme, cognitive tools that weren't possible before done by the machine. And now we are kind of redefining what is like only a human can do. Like, is it a human function, or is it just a function that human can also do, but other things can also perform that function? And I get to the conclusion that technology and advancement in technology is helping us get closer and closer to who we truly are, to the source of the essence of humans. Anything that technology is basically chipping away at, like, this is not human. You thought this is you. No, that's not also you. And then maybe we will get to the point where we'll have a similar experience with the body, where we say, you thought you're the body. No, look, you can now exist outside of the body, and you're still. I mean, those are just some thoughts that it's not like I'm fully buying this idea, like this whole idea of like transhumanism and being able to, live, in a simulation in a computer or something like that. It's kind of like a scare. I don't know how I think about that, to be honest, but the idea that we are eternal beings, let's say, of light, excites me. That have a possibility of it being true, where we're not tied to a physical body, and that we can be anywhere at any point, and that's where I see technology and spirituality coming together. They're almost like tackling the same thing from a different perspective. One is like, we call it a synthetic, a non-organic, not natural way of, let's say, becoming ethereal. And spiritual people, we consider all of that is pretty natural, like you know what I mean?
Yeah, I like it. I like what you're saying about spirituality and technology coming together, because we could live in an era where, we're becoming godlike in many ways, right? If we were to go back in time to hang out with George Washington right now, if we were to bring him here right now, his brain would just be, we could show him the iPhone and say, George, what image would you like us to bring up for you? Not even that. We'll show you a motion picture. He doesn't even know what a motion picture is. It's almost like just even 50 years ago for people to look at us and be like, you can get any piece of information instantly in front of your eyeballs.
Yep.
And we are in the stone age of technology, right?
100%, yeah.
And it brings up so many questions that I've wrestled with. I think for a while I was a simulation theory person. How do we know that this is real? How do we know that this isn't a very elaborate simulation game? Because one of the things that scares me about, a good friend of mine, Saurav Sinha, works in biotech. He's an investor. He's a venture capitalist. He believes we're only 10 to 12 years away from reaching immortality, right? And what basically... Right now, he says every year of technological progress in health is adding 0.3 years to human life. Once that reaches 0.1 or higher, every year we're living, we're going to be, catching up, on an average. What happens when time is not finite? Because so much of our lives is built around this finite nature of time, and potentially in a good way. How much would that date you went on with the love of your life mean to you if you lived for 300,000 years and had 50 different lives and love lives? And, I mean, what does that even mean? What's a relationship in that era? Can you date someone for 10,000 years? Sounds hard.
Yeah, it's really difficult to wrap your mind around even 1,000 years. Like 10,000 years, that's insane. That's crazy. Yeah.
Do you get bored? Because by
Yeah.
then you're like, well, 10,000, 1,000 years I can use.
Mm-hmm.
10,000 though. I'm like, okay, you've already been to Nepal,
Yeah.
350 times.
Yeah.
Okay, you've tried every restaurant on the planet.
Yes.
It's what then?
Yeah. Well, I think getting bored is a sign of not experiencing novelty. If there's no novel information, it's becoming kind of mundane and boring. I would suspect, though, the further we are in our evolutionary process, the more novel things we will discover, and it's not linear too, right? The further we go into the future, the more it's just going to be an explosion of novel things.
Already we're seeing that.
Right?
We could have endless. AI could be creating, 50 million Disney movies a day.
Exactly. Yeah.
Tailored to you.
Right.
But the novelty is a great one because so that's why ancestor simulations are really interesting. This idea of like, what if you die and you wake up and all your family's around you like, hey, how was it? And you're like, holy shit, that was crazy. I was like stressed and freaked out and like I had amazing times and weird times and that's what I always do wonder. If human beings get to a stage where we can no longer die, at what point does the most novel thing become putting us into a simulation where we think we can die, right? Like right now, right? Suddenly it feels real. And when you're in it, you don't know that there's anything outside of it.
That's right.
So then it feels very real. When you go to, like, if you and I were to go to battle or war tomorrow, we'd feel a lot of fear. If we knew that if we died, we'd wake up in a new body.
100%.
It would not be the same.
Totally. Yeah, there's actually a talk by Alan Watts who shares that exact idea where he says, imagine that you can dream anything, like you basically have this ability to dream any dream you want. And you can dream, let's say, one night you go to sleep and you dream 80 years of life. Like you dream a really long period of time where you get to experience anything you could possibly experience. You'll probably start from just experiencing the most wildest things that your mind can possibly imagine, and then the next night you'll probably continue for a little while until then you will be more excited to start introducing things that are outside of your control that you didn't necessarily just plan, like that whole experience, and just letting chance to come through this experience. And over time, you'll probably start introducing more and more of that chance until you get the point of living your life now, where everything is up to, like, reality is not predictable.
Right.
It's kind of like that.
Yeah, we need that unpredictability. We need that feeling of purpose. I think I'm into Stoicism, and what got me into it was I lost a couple friends when I was younger, who passed away, and it gave me this incredible gift. And the tragedy was, holy shit, I might die. And not like when I'm supposed to, when I'm like an old, happy old man around my grandkids. I might die suddenly, tragically, and maybe even violently. Yeah. And that made me, you'd think that would cause despair. I was blessed enough that it caused something different, which changed my life, which is it made me really think about how I was using my time, to an extreme degree of like, wait a second, if this is going to be over with, why would I spend time around people who are, bad actors or unethical or weird or, not kind, and I think death's so hidden from society today. We used to see it a lot, from what I understand. Like there'd be like a dead horse on the street. You'd see everyone worked in farming, so you'd see dead animals. You'd see animals. You'd see a cow give birth. You'd see your grandmother die. You'd see people after battle. Now everyone goes off to these hospital rooms, these places. We don't see it. Right now, there's a bunch of people in hospice in Miami dying right now, and in ER dying right now. And I find that being aware of that is actually can be very cathartic.
What do you think it takes away from us by not seeing the suffering? Like, what it's taking away, and maybe what is it providing? Or how do you see it?
Well, it's taking away the urgency, I think, because I think life is comfortable to a degree where we're not thinking of death often, and I think that's actually good. So the bad part is it's taking away the urgency. The good part is, let's be frank, it's taking away a lot of stress. It's taking away having to see things that are painful. But I think we've maybe gone too far.
Yeah.
And I wonder if we should learn more about what it's like end of life. I think one of the best programs we could do is we have every high school kid in the country or college kid in the country go spend time with older people who are dying and tell them, hey, I lived on this planet for a while. Maybe don't know everything, but I know a few things. And one of them is here. Like, here's my regrets. Here's what worked. I think that'd be, I think talking to me included, I need to do it more. I think talking to really old people is very good for all of us.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I enjoy actually. I don't do it often enough, even though we have a capsule company. I don't know if are you familiar with that, where we interview elderly for families, basically to encapsulate the essence and the memories and the wisdom of your loved ones. My business partner interviews most of them because most of them speak Spanish, and he's the one conducting those interviews.
Right. So you're already on this. I mean, this is in your wheelhouse. This is it's important. Talking to my grandfather a lot before he died and he passed away last year. Those were some of the best kind of moments. And mostly what you learn is you kind of learn you're going to worry about a lot, but most things are okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes we become I'm probably the worst victim of this than anyone. Just become too self-important. It's like, what are we really freaking out about? Sometimes as humans, we're so obsessed with what's happening in Miami or in your neighborhood or on your PTA board or with your kid's school. It's like, dude, we are spinning around a giant ball of fire, thousands of miles an hour. What the heck's going on? It's a miracle we're even here. Like, just kind of rest in that.
Man, yeah. I catch myself forgetting that too sometimes. When you are in this, I don't necessarily want to call it a rat race, but if there's a constant competition, you're trying to stay on top of your game. You're forgetting what's actually important. You're getting lost in this, game of like who wins or it's.
And then the game ends. Think about the Rat Pack.
Right.
Coolest guys ever, apparently. The Rat Pack.
Yeah.
Frank Sinatra and his friends. They were so cool. They were living it up. Everyone wanted to know them. There was all these people out there. That whole generation of people, they're all gone. They had loves. They had jealousies. They had hopes, dreams. Some were good people. Some were bad. Some were criminals. Some were heroes. Silence.
Yeah.
All gone. Like going to graveyards. Now this is probably the weirdest thing about me. Not at night, but during the day. If I ever walk past a graveyard, I for sure walk in. For the same thing I just told you about. Because I look around and I'm like, oh my God, what are we worried about here?
Yeah.
This is all going to be ashes soon, know? So, I highly recommend walking through a graveyard in the day and just reading some tombstones.
We actually live near one. I haven't been there though yet.
You need to go.
Yeah, I know. Maybe after this conversation I'll go. Yeah. During the day I'll go wander around.
Or at night too. Why not? Maybe that's your thing. I would just be a little, freaked out.
You're saying, right. So the taking away the suffering. Convenience is a big theme of modern Western world, bringing more convenience into our life. Do you see that being useful to a certain point, and then after that it uses its usefulness, and now we start getting negative externalities of that type of mentality?
Yeah, you can't be. I think the problem is comfort. Like comfort does not create greatness. Like it's. I think it's almost impossible. It's like if you and I were given an inheritance of $1 billion and we got it at 18. What are the odds that you'd be trying to rethink how we do lighting and how we do communication, and me thinking about starting things that are really hard?
Yeah.
You know, so as a entire species, we're getting to a place where comfort is increasing dramatically, and in most ways, good. See, this is I'm of two minds here, because it's like, yeah, we want to reduce suffering. You know, I'm big on self-driving cars. I think it's such a no-brainer just to force that forward, because 30,000 people die every year, you know, in America in a car accident. Yeah. And there's, you know, hundreds of thousands more that are massively injured. It's like we could reduce that to 20 tomorrow, you know, if we had the regulatory courage. So there's good progress like that. I think all kind of great, you know, innovation, all kind of great breakthroughs, even spiritual breakthroughs come through challenge. You know, people become a better person not when they're already a pretty good person. They become a better person when they become an alcoholic for 3 months and hit rock bottom, and they're in debt and they're in pain, and then they're like, wait a second, shit, I should change. You know.
Yeah, I wonder if there's much difference between a physical challenge and a mental challenge, because over time, as we develop, as we progress in evolution, I see us being less and less physical, having less and less physical challenge, but that doesn't make us worse off, or like we're just operating on a different plane of existence. Now all of the challenges are in our screen, like in the digital domain, and not really like hunting or like
it's all in the mind now.
Yeah.
I had this one guy mock me one time, because I'm rather tall and thin, and he kind of mocked me at a dinner party or something about how I should get strong and big, you know, and right in front of everyone. And I'm kind of, you know, I'm not one to back down. I kind of came back and said, I forget his name, but I said something along the lines of like, hey, if this was the Roman times, I'd be following your strategy, because I would figure I might need to go fight a dude with a spear or a sword in the coming weeks. Right. But we're not in the Roman times, my friend. It's 2024, and this is the only muscle I really care about. Yeah. Because this is the only playing field now. It's funny. It's like that part of, we almost forget that. You and I are the first generation with decent certainty we will not have to go and either fire a projectile at another man with the intention to kill him, or stab another man at point blank range. You couldn't even say the same of our father's generation.
For sure.
Certainly not of our grandfathers before. So like that alone has been a great change, and I think men are dealing with the ramifications of that too, because men have this greater physical strength. I think it's one problem men are in crisis right now. Physical strength is no longer useful. Yeah. It's like, you know?
I think maybe there is still some usefulness, because our mind is not separate from our body, right?
That's
and
a great
then
point.
having strong or a resilient body helps your mind to be in the same way. I don't necessarily promote to be like a really muscular, big, very, very strong person, but still be, I'm almost like talking to myself, and I wouldn't put myself in a category of like strong people. Let's say I'm a pretty decent swimmer. I have some muscle, but I've never really optimized my life for like having muscles. Like I was.
You optimize for energy, probably.
Yeah, optimized for just enough for me to feel healthy, to feel not limited by my body, basically.
I do the same.
You know.
I think everyone needs to work out daily, because of the evolutionary thing we keep going back to. It's like we evolved to wake up in the morning, run really fast, maybe throw something at a deer, maybe search around and find berries. Those are like movement activities. So I think we have to move every day. And you're right, the mind-body connection isn't it amazing though how little we understand the body still? For all the technology we have, and we barely understand the mind. I mean, we really, really are barely, we're only able to map a mouse's brain, barely. So that's the other thing I think we could be excited for is like, what happens when we really understand the mind?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what happens when we know that working out makes you feel better. You know, we know it releases these happiness hormones. We know that certain foods make us feel worse. One of the things I'm most excited about the future is the real time, the ping rate's going to get so much faster between action taken on our health and understanding impact. For example, right now we do things like go get blood work done.
Yep.
Every once in a while.
Sure.
Imagine a world where a device is in you 24/7 and you just ate McDonald's.
Right.
And it's like, it's like you're in trouble.
You're in trouble, yeah.
Or like, this is hurting you.
For sure.
You know, it'll probably crush the fast food industry overnight as millions of Americans kind of feel it instantly, you know.
If they don't adjust to that, like if they don't start serving food that actually serves you. I think naturally, the more we evolve, we become more aware of our bodies and ourselves and what we consume, food, and we've gone through where we're still at the kind of on the tail end of this train of fast food, unhealthy eating. There's still some people, you know, probably a decent number of people who are still going to McDonald's and eating really unhealthy food. I'm sure, there's still...
Maybe more than ever. I
think
maybe in Miami.
That's true. Yeah, so
we're in a very healthy place.
But I feel like they're also more conscious eaters than ever too.
This is the problem, though. I'm learning it's a bifurcation where the healthy people are getting way, way, way healthier. They're doing infrared, they're doing sauna, they're doing cold therapy, they're doing, you know, biohacking and athletic greens and all this shit. I do, and a lot of people I know do. And then there's people that just are eating what they want. And I ate like that at one point in my life. I ate what felt good to eat. The problem is what feels good to eat is also very cheap, and it's highly addicting. 300 grams of sugar, which is what I think about 40% of the U.S. population is consuming in a day. I might be wrong on that. If you were to try to go cold turkey off of sugar, it would be harder than going cold turkey off of heroin to get off of it. That's how much our body becomes used to it from like a pain addiction. So that's something. That's something I'm very hopeful for the future about, though, is if people can truly understand what the food's doing to their body in real time, we can maybe get some more change.
And then, as you mentioned, there's a group who are getting really healthy, and then the other one is more like degrading. Do you see like there's a gap that's bigger and bigger over time? It's almost like there are now advanced humans who are also technologically advanced and conscious and healthy and stuff, and then the rest is less so.
Yeah, it's almost like it's pushing these two parties away, and I do think you can go too far on the over-optimizing side. I've been there.
Okay.
I mean, I've had my whole morning routine down to like 5-minute increments and was eating like perfect. And I learned both sides can like learn something from the other. Like obviously the obesity rates have never been higher in America. It's the worst in the world. But also the health freaks can also learn. There's a point where I think you stop learning how the human body worked, right? We also we don't need perfection to have great results, right? It's like you can have cake, you can have some ice cream occasionally, and it's not going to like throw you into a spiral of, you know, depression and woe, right? So
So at some point you were really optimizing as much as you could, and then you scaled down
I scaled down a little bit.
Yeah.
I just feel like there's got to be a little latitude for a few things in life. I think a structured life is a better life. I think you're just more like, I think having routines is so important. Probably the best thing I ever did was just be like, when you wake up in the morning, you're so tired, your brain is very good at following pre-programmed instructions, though.
Yeah.
So if your brain knows, I wake up, I do task 1, then 2, then 3, whether it's shower, meditate, food, workout, whatever it is, you just do the same order every single day.
Yep.
that allows your brain the freedom to think about other things. Decision fatigue, I think, is very real. You don't be wasting your morning going, okay, should I shower now? Should I have breakfast? Should I get some coffee? Should I reply to that email? Should I do this? I think a lot of people still do that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's little hacks like that. I think where it goes too far is when you're out with friends at a restaurant and there's great food there and you just don't, it's like these are moments.
Right.
And pretty soon we're going to be dead, so like, I think it's okay.
Yeah, you're just going to die very healthy.
Right. And watch, I mean, there's this Brian Johnson guy. He's, doing everything in the world to make himself healthy, and more power to him. I certainly am not a mocker or a hater of people like that. I think anyone doing anything weird is cool in my book,
Mm-hmm.
But I do have to wonder, right? We all know the story. Sometimes it's the guy who smokes a pack of cigarettes, every day and drinks a Diet Coke, but he's got a big belly laugh. Mm-hmm. Versus the guy that's like super intense and stressed out and like eating perfectly all the time. And that guy's like the guy that dies younger. And the cigarette smoking, laughing guy.
Totally, man. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, food is just one variable. There's so many other, the social aspect, I feel like it's a lot more important than what you eat. I mean, what you eat is certainly important, but like your community, like if you really enjoying everyone around you, you feel a sense of meaning and communal like presence. I think that really, I think they've done studies where the longer living people tend to have really healthy social lives.
Yes,
that's one of the bigger.
We see that because the blue zones are in Japan and they're in Italy. Mm-hmm. These are the areas they found that people live the longest in the world. Mm-hmm. The diets are different. Mm-hmm. One group is drinking wine a lot. Mm-hmm. So wine drinkers love that. And then in Japan, they're also drinking. So they're doing things that aren't like perfect per se. Mm-hmm. What they do have is that deep sense of community. You need people to expect you. I would always talk to my grandparents. This isn't my idea. I stole this from someone. I would always try to schedule ahead next time I talked to them, because I think it was a nurse or someone had told me, like, old people often lose things to look forward to. You're retired, you're sitting around, okay, it's your shows, maybe there's a football game you want to watch. Mm-hmm. But if you don't have anything where you're like, I need to stay alive and thrive for this next thing, like that's when you start to degrade. Mm-hmm. Worst thing my grandfather ever did was retire. Retired, and he tried to invent work for himself. He'd be like cleaning and like fixing random shit around the house that didn't even need to be fixed. Sure. But like it wasn't enough. Like he needed more purpose, in my opinion, to keep his mind sharper.
For sure, yeah. Touching back on the topic of community, you've been, I'm sure, learning a lot about the whole concept of community, how to build one, what works, what doesn't. In the recent years and prior as well. Can we dive deeper into maybe some aha moments that you've encountered so far while working at B.A.S.E, something around community theme that you've discovered?
I think the ideal way to meet people is not one-on-one, and it's not in large groups like 100. Mm-hmm. It's small groups. And I think it makes sense when you think about it, because you want a group small enough. What we do at B.A.S.E is we match people to the best matching scenario we have is 6 people, all different industries, for 2 reasons. One, it's small enough to where it's intimate. If I'm with you there for 2 hours, I can at least know you well enough to know, maybe I've learned something from you, but I at least know enough about your character. Or I feel like we know each other now. If we see each other again, we know each other. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the goal of a first meeting, is to at least have an understanding of that person where you could reintroduce yourself if you saw them again. Mm-hmm. When it's too small, you just lower your odds of success, right? We've all had bad dates. You sit down, it's bad right away. It's tough, right? If there's more people, there's more opportunities of success. Mm-hmm. And if it's too large, then it becomes less humanizing. Somehow it's like there's an intimidation factor, probably from the public speaking thing of being in a large crowd and like, you feel more anonymous. But then also mixing professions. Why? Because we default a lot in conversation. And if I'm around people with my same profession,
Mm-hmm.
what are we going to talk about? Work. If I'm around people from other professions, we can't talk about work.
Right.
So now we're meeting each other as human beings. So those are the two main learnings that are very simple, which is 5, 6, 7 people, probably leaning more towards 5 or 6, maybe even as low as 4 is how the best way to meet new people. And mixing professions is the best way to get to a human level quickly, unless you're being really objective about it, like if you have people of the same profession. Yeah.
It started, you guys started with a little bit bigger groups, right?
Yeah, we started with bigger. We started with 8.
8, okay.
What we learn is it would also create side conversation. So like when a group gets too large, you can't have a single-threaded conversation. And single-threaded conversations are so powerful. Like it's like when you think of like a single-threaded conversation, it's like what Aristotle would have with his students, or it's like where whoever's speaking has the floor, as it were, and everyone's watching that person. And I think that's a good feeling, and we need it more. Like have the mic, have the spotlight for a second.
For sure.
I think that one of the cool things about B.A.S.E is I think people listen to a lot of podcasts. I think it's fun to participate in, like the conversation we're having now, just participate in conversations where people can hear your opinions,
If you either had to start it over and it's a younger version of you, you're giving an advice, or someone who is just starting or considering to start a community, what are some pitfalls, what works, what doesn't? Give some advice to those who are in a position of maybe starting a community.
Well, it's always starting a community takes a little bit of courage, I think, initially and there's no other way around it. I think to start anything, it always takes the ability to just ask people very directly for help early on. Because when you start anything, you have nothing, and especially in the case of B.A.S.E, it's a social club. You want to join? Well, who's in it? Me and you, and my other friend. It's like, that's the biggest challenge with community, is like the cold start problem. How do you get started? And I think how you get started is you just be authentically bold. I'm shocked and sometimes upset with myself that the thing I should have done younger is I should have been more bold. Almost all my regrets are because I reacted to fear instead of courage. All my mistakes. And usually it's, thinking there's a time, you need to like wait for a certain time. I go back and talk to, I do Zoom calls with my college American entrepreneurship class, and number one thing I always tell these kids is like, when you're young like that, just ask people who've had success to talk to you. And guess what? They will. And now you just like created mentors out of thin air, but everyone thinks they need to wait. Yeah. And it gets back to like, one of my big things that I've tried to always battle is like, if we truly didn't care what people thought of us, it's almost impossible to do because we're social creatures.
Yes.
But if we truly didn't care, and I think it's not caring what they think of you. I think it's observing what they think of you, but valuing your own opinion of yourself more than you would the opinion of the crowd. And that's a constant battle I fight. And I think it's one that all of us have to try to fight and win to start anything like a community. So I think the first battle is you've just got to like, almost have a friendship with yourself. Because I think the best way to have that courage is to be like, isn't this fun? Isn't this funny? It's like an adventure.
For sure.
It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be scary, but you have to be bold. Put yourself out there.
Yeah. There's this idea somewhere where a movement, the main person of a movement is not a leader, is the first follower.
I like that. That's good. Yeah.
It's kind of like that, right? In the starting community, it's like you have to be cool yourself for people to be wanting to like join your community.
Yeah.
Like
well, I think what's cool, I like to think about that. Cool is authentic. Authenticity is what's cool, because I think when I find someone who's not interesting and bores me, I think it's because they're trying to be something else.
That's right.
They think, well, I can't say that because that'd be too controversial, or I can't do this because that'd be too weird, or I can't.
Right.
that's when they become boring.
They're like pasteurized.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, right. They're pasteurized. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
They're too too perfectly clean, and
No,
there's no, yeah,
no. The crazier, the better.
yeah.
The crazier, the better. It's like, guy told me one time, he's like, met a guy once, one place, he told me he used to do heroin. It's like, yeah, that sounds interesting. What's your life about? Not, oh, I went here, then went to this school, and it's like, yes, that's fine too. But like, if the story you're telling the world is like a story designed to make people like think you're high status or like you, you're actually, it's the wrong strategy. You're for that goal. The goal should be, I'm just going to be how I am with my friends, that weird self. I'm going to be with everybody.
Yep.
But it's very hard to do. Very hard to do.
It's hard to do, yeah. Yeah, I see I host also these community gatherings. They're centered around deep human connection, authentic expression. And what really connects humans is the vulnerable share, something that's uncomfortable, something that's very vulnerable, really unites people. When you share all the happy stories, it's harder to connect on that level. Yes, we can certainly relate. I like this. Have you heard of, so there's a compassion, but there's also, have you heard of the word compersion?
No.
So compassion is compassion is basically if somebody's feeling sadness or pain, you're feeling for them. Compersion is when somebody's feeling happy, you're feeling for them as well. Like it's a different, like a different way of relating to somebody else.
Those people are hard to find at times. You do need there's one key friend I think everyone needs. You need a friend you can brag to. Because I have a few friends, they call me and they'll say something's going on. They'll be like, I'm so sorry, I'm talking too much about myself and all the stuff that's going good with me. And I'm like, no, go. Like I could, like for some of my friends, I'm that friend they can brag to. You need that because the world doesn't want to hear you brag, right? The world doesn't like any braggart. but it feels good to be like, I did this thing.
Yeah.
I did it. Yeah. Or I was courageous there. Or this is working.
Yeah.
And you don't spill that to the world because a lot of you got to be careful where you share those secrets in a way because finding the friend who will celebrate your successes, that's a rare jewel.
I would say your partner often serves that function.
Yes.
A good partner is also your best friend that you can brag to and you can do so many other things. Yeah.
It should be. Yeah.
Going back to the community and now relating it to the future technology advancement, where are we going from here? How do you see future communities? Will we still need physical presence, even if, let's say, we have very immersive or as immersive as the real deal, like you don't see the difference between the visual, like seeing a person in front of you, and a simulated experience? Let's say we have that type of technology. Do we still need, you guys are in the business of bringing people together in the physical spaces.
Probably not. Unless there's something I don't know about the science of pheromones. But even that could probably be faked. Technology is, it's endless.
Yeah.
I ultimately think it could replace it because the mind is very powerful. The placebo is very powerful. If it looks real, feels real, is it not? And we just have to check the pheromones and see, is that actually affecting anything? These chemicals and scents that we send off without even knowing it, does that matter? If that doesn't matter, then no. And that's pretty exciting because that means that would actually be one of the best technologies, I think, right? If we could, connect with loved ones. My parents don't live in my same state. It would be so fun to spend time with them and show them things in such an interactive way. I think it's a very exciting time.
I sometimes think about this, that there's a possibility that the technology like this, of like fully simulating a human presence experience, might introduce the human function that kind of got atrophied, let's say, when we talk about like telepathic communication or some non-physical way of interacting. maybe there's something there that we will discover after we completely simulate all of this known senses. Then maybe we will notice the delta, the difference between the physical experience and the fully simulated one.
Yeah, body language is so important.
Yeah, I mean that, but you're still simulating that part. I'm talking more about, let's say you're closing your eyes and you're in the presence of another person. You mentioned pheromones, but
Yeah,
maybe
you can
there's
sometimes
another.
sense it.
Yeah, maybe some other ways to perceive somebody else.
I don't know, but I think it'll be, I mean, the one thing, we do know that it's like the power of getting a hug or physical touch is so powerful. So when that suit technology, though, can make it feel that real, that's something I'm excited for. That's going to be awesome. And that's in our lifetime.
It is, yeah.
That's what's so crazy. We live in such a great time for just watching innovation. I remember dial-up internet. By the time I die, if I even do, there'll be life like VR.
Yeah.
We might have just missed the boat, but certainly our children would be immortal. And that's pretty cool.
How often do you think about the future? Is that something you're...
Oh, every day. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think about it every day. My favorite type of future to think about is the next 100 years, because that's something I could actually have an impact on.
Okay.
And I like to think about, I often think about it in the context of America, because I feel like America is such a, and this is not a political statement against either party, I think the entire system in both parties are so hamstrung by corruption. I went down the rabbit hole of reading around particularly government corruption over the last year, and I just feel like some of the best alpha we can find in changing the world right now is trying to make government maybe a little bit more efficient, because it's in control of so much money and so much power. And if it's so inefficient, and bureaucratic and corrupt, that's the area of the future that most excites me, is can we create mechanisms there? And that's something I hope to spend some of my later life on, and I don't even know in what capacity and how, but that seems like something that's important, For example, in Miami, we have these brickle bridges that go up that back traffic up really badly and cause chain reaction traffic.
Yep.
I want to live in a world where we just don't accept that. We don't accept traffic. And I'm frankly disappointed in the previous generation that they're like, traffic's okay. Traffic should never be okay. Traffic should never be okay. Like president should be like, we're putting together a 10-year plan to reduce all traffic to zero. I'm talking about a scenario where your car has to slow down below the speed limit at any time. Should be zero. Just so it's like a mindset change, and I think it's cool that, to talk with people like you about this, because I think that's where it always starts. It just starts with talking.
Yeah, exactly. Starts with talking. I sometimes also think about the transportation future and how that looks like. I compare it to like sending packets of data through fiber optics around the world. It's routing traffic depending on where the congestions are and things like that. So I see everything is going to be obviously self-driving, but they're basically going to be packets, little cars, just being routed in the most optimal way. Nothing slows down. Everything's just flying. Like
self-driving will solve this almost overnight, because it's human error. They actually brought in people from Europe to study U.S. traffic. They found out our roads are fine. It's drivers making errors, because chain reaction principle. Basically, a lot of Americans have a problem where when they're changing lanes on a highway, they brake or slow down to change lanes behind a car. That's a much less done thing by like European drivers, for example, who are better trained to speed up to merge. One person slowing down to merge seems like nothing, but if that person's slowing down by 10, 15 miles an hour, they're causing chain reactions thousands of cars deep. So it's things like that, like self-driving will be great at fixing.
For sure. Any other themes of the future that you often visit?
Um, well, we just talked about cities a little bit, but I think the city of the future is pretty exciting because so much of our cities right now are designed for cars.
Yes.
My sister's always had a great belief that, cars should not be allowed in cities, and I think that kind of future is going to be much better than people even realize because we can create small transportation devices. They can move people around and take cars out of cities. Think about all the real estate in front of your apartment or your home or downtown or all these areas where we can bring back greenery, bring back walkways. Cities can instantly become extremely walkable all over the world. Sure. And then the only question is, how do you pull that off? And I think it's the freight is the main thing. So we'd have to figure out how to get freight into cities still. But if you just think of like Miami, downtown, and Brickell, those are areas that if they had no cars allowed in them, a bunch of zip lines or fast little smaller transportation modes, just think about 8th Avenue, Miami Avenue being trees and beauty and people walking. How great would that be? So that's one area of the future I think about is cities and how do we make cities more joyful to live in?
Well, yeah. Have you used Midjourney or like OpenAI image tools?
I have many times.
Have you tried creating visions of the future that you have?
Yeah, I have actually. It's really fun.
Yeah.
My best use cases for AI are twofold. One, doing what you just described.
Yeah.
Like creating visions of the future.
Yes.
It can just be so inspiring. I create ones that just inspire me.
Nice.
And then also, my mind is very bad with dates, names, summary information. All the rote learning stuff you would learn like a history class. My mind's good with the story. And when I'm reading a biography, like I was just reading I read Bill Clinton's autobiography. I'm reading all the presidents. It was so useful to have AI as this learning companion with me where I'm able to say, okay, summarize 1991 or 1992 or like whatever year it was.
Yes.
And that ability for the AI to be kind of teaching me and companion to my own learning has been awesome. And that's, once again, the Stone Age. I mean, soon it'll know how to teach me, like personally, Yeah,
exactly. It will know exactly what the best way for your mind to absorb information, and it will show you also visually the concepts that your mind just gets right away. One thing that I'm also excited about is being able to, I know it could go so many other wrong ways, reading your mind, where you can have someone experience your dreams, your visions, your like wildest dreams, right?
Wow.
You can put them into your dream, and you guys can experience it together. I think that's a cool experience.
Or your nightmare.
Or a nightmare. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's some dreams I'd like to go into, and there's some you definitely don't want.
Yeah, I mean more of like it's a dream life.
It's like a present.
You're in full control of the dream, basically. It's not like it's a random like whatever happens.
Oh, it's whatever happens. You're just like on a road. No, that's the future present, like a presentation. Like I'm excited for the future of like what we think of as a PowerPoint deck, because the future PowerPoint deck will be, I'm pitching an investor, for example, in a Vision Pro. They're in a Vision Pro.
Yes.
I'm showing them a 3D rendering of what our product looks like.
It feels like.
And then that's slide one. And slide two, it flashes. Now we're in a different room. And it's a universe where I'm showing, here's the TAM, here's all the customers, here's the presentation within VR is going to be so cool.
That's true.
Learning in VR is going to be so cool. And then there's even the freaky realm of creating AIs of people that are already gone,
Yep.
Certainly, you take a podcaster like Joe Rogan, who has so many hours of content,
for sure,
and just ingest all that.
Yep.
You could probably using AI to could we understand his opinions even 100 years after he's dead?
Yeah, I think we can get an approximation, like a pretty good approximation of like the framework or like the perspective on life that he has. Even if you give a new idea, it will, with a high probability, will output
That's
something
exciting.
very similar.
That's really exciting.
I actually, yeah, so what time is it? About an hour and a half that we've been recording, so maybe another little bit, and then
Okay.
we'll, what was I saying? Approximation. Yes, I do. So I'm aware of this idea that eventually you'll be able to feed all of data you've generated, either your emails, your videos of you, and then create your avatar that will act as an agent on your behalf. I'm pretty sure it's coming sooner than we, right? And so I've already started kind of playing around with it. For example, I journal on both on paper and on my phone, and every year I create a new document in which I put the date, and then I put a comment for each. Whenever I have new ideas, I would put a date and the comment. And so each year I have like a really long document of all kinds of notes for the year. And so I started playing around with giving. So now the input window into AI, you can give it a really large document, and it's been useful to say, like, here's how I think. Imagine that's you now. Now there's this task. What would you say, like in my own language?
That's awesome. You create your custom GPT. Yeah, I need to do that.
And what's been also very insightful is to ask questions about myself. Like, oh, what are the recurrent themes that I talk about? I don't really have a good idea of, like, throughout the whole year what I've been talking about.
It's a really interesting use case because I always wanted to understand my word usage, because it wasn't until I started seeing myself in recordings that I realized there's certain turns of phrase we use too much. I say "here's the thing" a lot. I probably said it here today. I don't even know, but you can kind of pick up on these patterns of speech we have that are quite interesting. So yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah, there are a lot of use cases that we're not even aware of. I mean, the most obvious one is human communication, like really bringing people closer together and collapsing geography and having no more need to waste your time commuting or bringing your physical body into a place so that you can feel present with somebody else. I think that could be another use case. I think maybe a good place to kind of wrap up is to talk a little bit about more about B.A.S.E. and the vision that you guys have, what you're working towards, and any other like useful details about the.
B.A.S.E. is a tech-powered social club, and members use our app to get matched to these groups like we talked about earlier, 5 to 6 people. The matching is done. The idea of the matching is we want to take like the work out of this, because right now social is a lot of work, and it's an underrated thing. But like, it's not just work and like I need to physically decide where to go and then physically get there, which it is. But there's also the like anxiety of it, like the anxiety that I'll waste my time, the anxiety that people might not like me or something. All these things that people deal with.
Sure.
With B.A.S.E., we're trying to make it easy and simple to meet great people and make a city feel smaller, because cities are very lonely places. It's incredible. You can feel so lonely with people right around you. You don't know your neighbors' names. You don't know all these faceless or these nameless faces. We make it so easy to meet great people through matching, and that's the core of the business, is just like bring more great people in, put them together into groups, and then we design the conversations, with a few objectives in mind. And the main one you brought up earlier is vulnerability. Look, no one's going to be, it's not a great conversation if, some guy walks in, he's a 3-time CEO, and he's like, I flew in with my jet from the Caribbean, and I've got this, I lost, $300 grand gambling last week, It's just, because then human nature, we're all like trying to like, now it's a comparison game. Like now I got to prove my worth, or a lot. We've noticed that with guests in our social club is sometimes they feel like, boy, I need to like say my bio, and then it becomes a comparison competition.
Like a status game or something.
It becomes a status game, and status games are boring and lame. And what we try to do is get to vulnerability, because vulnerability is where you get to know somebody. You don't get to know somebody through their successes. I mean, if I just told everyone all the good things I had going on in my life, no one would really connect with me at all or like me much at all. When I tell people pains I've gone through, or just real things, or just that's where it happens. So we try to create a human conversation that doesn't start with what you do, right? What you do is not the full picture of who you are. Our society is way too defined by that person's a lawyer, that person's real estate, that person's in tech.
Yeah.
Like, that's such a lazy way, I think, to distinguish people. So we try to get people away from that. And really the vision is a social club that brings people together all over the world. I mean, I think we wanted to first prove this could work in a city. And now our job is to prove we can do this in 2 other places. And if we can do it there, I think the market will allow us to try it all over the world. And I think it's needed. We need to make it easier for people to meet. And we want to do it not just in the sexy cities, New York, LA, London, Paris. There's a lot of social clubs. There's a lot of country clubs in these places. What about Kansas City, Missouri, Cleveland, Ohio, Portland, Oregon? I mean, there's all these cool places where there's a lot of people with the same problem, and maybe even worse because there's less to do in those places.
And how did it all come about? What's kind of the origin story? I don't really know.
Well, the origin was I was thinking about what my next startup would be. I'm just wired to just keep trying things and just start things. That's just how my brain's working. So I was thinking about it, and I knew I needed 2 things. I needed a problem that many people had. And I didn't discover this one by telling people an idea I had. I just asked people about their problems. And people would tell me business problems and life problems and this problem and that problem. But kind of universally, everyone of all different types of backgrounds would say, I do wish I knew better people in my city, or had a better network in my city, or had more local friends. Yep. And that was pretty universal. And then I thought, boy, I wonder if there's a scalable way to do that. Let's start thinking about this. Can we scale it? It was that, and then I just dove deep, and I read Andrew Putnam's book, Bowling Alone, and I started talking to more people about it, and I thought, what, this is worth solving, so let's do it. So we launched, started last year.
Yeah, amazing, man. Yeah. How can people find information about the club, and how can people participate or join?
Best way to find us is just go to B.A.S.E.club. And if you're in Miami, we can get you started right away. If we're going to Austin and Chicago next. And it's been an incredible community to grow. And it's getting better all the time. And that's what's fun is, I share with a lot of, friends. It's like, as creators, you're always thinking of ways things can get better. And that's really exciting for this one, is because there's so many ways we know we can improve this. So we just feel like by this time next year, this product's going to be, in a whole nother plane, which will be fun.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome, man.
Cool.
I think this is a great place to wrap up the conversation. Thank you again for coming. And this is a pleasure bouncing ideas and just brainstorming things.
This is an incredible setup.
Yeah.
This is awesome, actually.
Thanks,
wow.
man. Yeah.